Hi, everyone. Welcome to Poetry and Talk. Poetry and Talk is a new online interviewing platform for poets to share their poetry, background, and inspiration. We're so grateful that you're watching today. We have a new guest poet to introduce you to. We hope you stay connected with us on our new YouTube channel and also on our Facebook page, Poetry and Talk. Please subscribe, like, and share. If you are a poet and you're interested in being interviewed on Poetry and Talk, just send an email to us at poetryandtalk@gmail.com and we'll get back to you with scheduling and information. Thank you again for watching today. I'm Leslie Sue, the host for Poetry and Talk, and I'd like to welcome our guest poet for today, Shaunie Shammass. Shaunie, welcome.
Thank you. So I guess I'll just start with one of my poems. It's called The Wish. It's from my collection of poems. The book is called The W Book, and all of the poems in the book the title begins with a word that starts with the letter W. And I have 52 poems in the book, one for each week. So the first one is called The Wish.
Mm-hmm.
Now you close your eyes and dream for an instant of something that you long for, want to happen. You call this thing a wish and hope it does come true. Now you close your eyes and dream for a moment of a world that is better, of a piece of life that is sweet, of a friendship that is lasting, of a home with kindling fire burning softly at the tip of your heart. And this dream leaps into the moonlight like a drop of instant thought. This hope wisps through the air, lighter than a feather, flitting past your nose, just in time for you to breathe in its passing breath, wafting fragrance, and hope for more. Now you close your eyes and let your thoughts just wander into the day, into the night, timeless ways, timeless, ever there, floating up to the clouds into a picture you imagine. Is it really there? Is it really there? It's not for you to decide the fate of this ephemeral thinking. It's not for you to know what happens next. 'Tis only yours to conjure up the moment of wishing for something that you wish to be so real. Now you close your eyes and hope against all odds that what you think could ever really be, the wish has been created forever. It is there because you dared to dream and see. In your mind's eye, in your mind's sphere, you dared to dream and see. Yes, the wish is there forever. Will it come true? No one knows, but it is there. Will it only be a wish forever? No one dares to say. After all, a wish is just a wish, a dream away.
I love that.
Thank you. So some of my poems are just what I think of that word and what that word, it just sort of I just start to let my mind kind of float and think of all the ideas that particular word means or conjures up for me.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes that's based on an actual event. So I'd like to recite a little poem that I call The Whale. It's also, of course, beginning with the letter W. And this was actually based on a true event. We were on a ferry one time and we saw this whale. And it was quite a magnificent thing to see because usually people go and pay huge amounts of money to go to these expeditions and see a whale. And we'd just taken a regular ferry off the Canadian coast of Vancouver to Victoria. And there was this whale. So here's the poem. The Whale. Oh, mighty creature of the sea, why has God made you so big? Traveling like a conglomerate. Haven't you heard that being overweight is bad for your health? I've heard they hunt you for your oil, spear you down to size. Isn't it easier to get the mighty liquid from a peaceful olive? Why do they need your bulk as a prize? Go, swim like a tanker in the ocean. Blow a geyser up to the sky. Oh, mighty creature of the sea, why has God made you so vulnerable for all to see? I once saw you from a creaky boat, you magnificent thing, floating like an island. And then, with the whip of your tail moving away, you hulk, you bulk. I've never seen anything like it. I shouted out, there's a whale, there's a whale, and all came to one side to see you. The boat tilted, we almost drowned, trying to get a glimpse of your expansiveness. People pay for this, and I got it for free. Feel cheated? Not me, not me. But I still wonder, what on earth, or in water, was God thinking? What is the reason for your girth? Why make a creature quite so big? Perhaps you have been put here so that we can see how very small we are.
I love that too. Your poetry really comes alive. As you're saying this, you really take us on quite a journey. It seems, Shaunie, that there's not only kind of a whimsical feel, particularly in the whale, but it also seems that there's also kind of a questioning about the world and kind of going deep within yourself and kind of reflecting on it and bringing that back out in your poetry. Is that correct?
That's really correct. I think there's always two layers in my poetry. One is the child in me, and even though I'm kind of past the childhood age, I still have a lot of it in me, and it comes out. And at the same time, there's kind of a depth. So there is two layers there, and it's probably a reflection of me as a person, of who I am as a person, because I am this creative, whimsical person, but I do have this other very deep side to me that I think is reflected in the poetry.
Mm-hmm. And then these parts of you kind of merge together in your poetry.
I think so, yes.
And there's a beautiful flow in both of these poems that you read, The Wish and The Whale. It really has this like almost like dreamy quality and very animated too. And then specifically when you're speaking it as well is really a sense of aliveness. Can you go a little bit deeper into maybe let's start with The Wish and the whole W reference. Can you share that with us?
Yeah, again, it's really just a reflection of what I actually think of, and I really let my imagination just no holds bar. I just really let it go. And so even though I'm confining myself to a particular topic that begins with the letter W, I don't confine myself in any other way. And I just let things roll off the way it comes to mind. And I actually do very little editing. I mean, I do some editing, and I do through the process, but it is really, I think I really want to keep that kind of childish aspect of it as a fresh aspect, so that people don't think that it's been overworked. And sometimes when you overwork something, it starts to weigh it down. And I do like to keep that kind of whimsical and light quality in it. And I do have a musical background, so rhythm and type of flow is very important. And my real background is in phonetics. So I've always been really really interested in sounds and how they combine. And maybe that's why I started with the letter W, because I like the sound of the word W, like what it has I'm attracted to the sound. Sounds silly, but so I just wanted to mention some other inspirations that I have. Sometimes sometimes actually I think of a word and then I think of all the types of collocations it can appear in. So by collocations, you wouldn't really say rancid cheese or rancid milk, okay? Because those two words don't go together, but rancid butter, you'd use the word rancid with butter. So sometimes I take a word and just see where it has an affinity. So an example of this is the wax. And you can think of wax as just wax, but there's all kinds of collocations of wax that I've used in this poem. Candle burning brightly, wax dripping down the side, smoldering in the night, giving off subtle light. Wax figures in a room, not moving much. Waxed floors in the shiny noon, slippery floor in my room. Wax in my ears, plugging them up, need to drain them into a cup. Wax my unwanted hair away in the most painful way. Don't forget the beeswax, stupid bees. Do you have to put your honey in one of these? Waxed my car the other day, washed and paid, drove away. Waxed my skis, traveled down the mountain like a breeze. Great white moon, waning and waxing. Did you think I would tire of asking, what is all this wax about? I hope you'll forgive me. I hope you won't mind if I wax poetic and leave you behind. So this is just another example of I don't know, I really have an affinity to words, and I really have, I don't know, I like to play with them. And sometimes I let myself go into a deeper level, and sometimes I just stay at that playful level. Mm-hmm. And just let it just roll. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You have a very interesting, Shaunie, way of being so free and being so open that is so appealing. Like, for example, you really explore something from so many different angles, almost like I feel like, when you go to a museum and you see a sculpture and you walk, excuse me, all the way around it, you really get to see all the different sides and the different angles and the different perspectives. And in all three of these poems, it really seems like you really dive deep into these subject matters and look at it from like such a multi-level perspective. It's really quite beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah. I often jot down just things that I would think of immediately upon thinking that word. And sometimes I have like a few pages of just really even off the wall ideas. And then I kind of pick and gather them. I feel like I'm a seed gatherer, and I just kind of pick which ones I want to use.
Wow, that's a beautiful way to look at that. Thank you. Wow. Yes, go ahead.
I think it's really important to let yourself kind of go free. I think it's also part of my personality, especially my writing, because in my writing, I just feel like there's no holds bar. I can really say anything and nobody's looking over my shoulder. I do very little judge. I judge myself very little. I never have this kind of feeling that I have to produce a certain way or have to have certain feel or anything. I never know how the poem is going to end when I start it. I never have a structure, and I never have anything built before. It's sort of like almost like you take a piece of wool and just kind of unravel the whole sweater just by pulling at it. And it's actually a very liberating process, and it's very therapeutic for me. And I think it might be therapeutic for others. And that's why I really was interested in sharing this, because sometimes people think that when you have to produce something like something of art or music or painting, whatever, it doesn't matter, that has to be something. And I really think that the process is the product. When the creation of something is, I mean, obviously I want my poems to reach a certain level and to have have a certain impact on people, and for people to feel something about them and to appreciate them. But it's never something that is it's never something that I plan out. It's very unplanned.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that ability, and that I think it's a skill that you can develop, to just have no holds bar and just do it, just let it out. And you can always edit stuff and always redo things, but especially at that first moment, I just really let everything out and just let everything pour out of me, and have very little restraint and very little feeling of self-judgment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think that was great insight.
It's really almost like a child playing, because when you see children playing, they're not producing something, they're just doing. And for me, writing is just doing. And then if I produce something at the end, it's because I re-edit it or rework it or a little bit. But by and large, it just comes out, and it's quite liberating.
Mm-hmm. I think you gave us two keys to your sense of freedom in your life, and specifically in your poetry. And I think that the two of them are, first of all, no judgments, that you're not judgmental about the process, about the product, the final product. And it seems like kind of in life in general. So I believe without having that filter there, that really opens you up. And I think the second one that you touched upon, Shaunie, is the innocence. I think those are very powerful elements and components to bring into the poetic process. So,
Yes.
so I appreciate you sharing this, and I think, as I mentioned, those are kind of key elements to opening up and really expressing what's there without any preconceived thought or notion.
Exactly. So it's somebody asked me, like, why am I writing a book like called the W book? And I said, well, children have a lot of alphabet books. They have all kinds of alphabet books. It's rhyming books and picture books, and they all go through the alphabet. And there's never really been an alphabet book for adults. So that's what I did. I started with the letter W, but I really do have in mind to go through all the letters of the alphabet. I'm now working on the letter S. So we'll be finished soon. And it's kind of a nice project because I can do it whenever I want. I have this plan that I really want to go through all the words of the alphabet. But it's just kind of also it's like why can't adults have an alphabet book? What is it about adults that have no alphabet book, and what is it about kids that have a zillion alphabet books? Well, obviously they're learning to read, or they're learning the alphabet, but we can look at things. And I think as an adult, we don't have to learn to read. We can learn about the letters or the words that start with those letters in a new way, and in a kind of a more mature way, but also continue having that kind of ability to look at them as children do. Children enjoy words, and they enjoy letters, and they have fun with them, and they play with them. And I just I think why don't adults do this? Why is it that only children do these things and adults don't? And I think it is kind of that we restrain ourselves. We don't allow ourselves to play, and we don't allow ourselves to be to look and see something afresh, not just as a regular word, not just as something that we see in an everyday context, but to really play with it. So that's what I really wanted to bring across.
Mm-hmm. So your poetry, yes. And so your poetry is really like an active play for you, and a love of words and a love of exploration.
Correct. Right.
Mhm. I would like to touch upon, Shaunie, some inspiration that you had mentioned. When inspiration hits, it sounds like you have like a journal, you get an idea for words or sounds. And so, and I love how you said there's seeds, and then at certain times you know that they're going to be germinated, and that you take them and you start to work with them and write them. When does this inspiration hit? Is it various times? Do you notice certain times more than others? How does that play out for you?
It's pretty unstructured. So sometimes I'll like, bounce out of bed at 11 o'clock and I don't know, like before going to sleep, and have to run and quickly write something down. And sometimes I'm just like, sipping a nice cup of coffee and put it down, and there's another one. It's kind of like sparks that go off. You get a spark, and then you just kind of write it down, and I leave it. I usually leave it for a little while, because when things are too fresh, I don't like to monkey around with them too much. But I have sparks like this with other things. Like I also write music. Sometimes it just sort of comes, um, and it's really hard to understand that process, or what starts it, where it comes from. It's very, very difficult to understand where that comes from.
It's very enigmatic.
Very enigmatic, and I would say it even surprises me sometimes, because sometimes I write something, and all of a sudden, I don't know, I'll look at it after 3 or 4 days, and I'll say, oh, who, it's almost like I'm reading somebody else's work, and I look at it and I say, well, who wrote this? Oh, it's me. But it's almost like a self-discovery in that sense.
Mm-hmm. That's really beautiful. And Shaunie, is it correct? There's a certain amount of like knowingness, like you're at your computer or wherever you write, and so there's something that's already kind of in your journal, so to speak, of ideas that are kind of brewing, and it's just a knowingness. Okay, now it's time. We're going to focus on this. Is that kind of the operation that's going on, so to speak?
No, I think I don't know. I think I know I know when to start, but it just sort of flows out. It's like a river. So it's going to go out, but I never really know what I'm going to write about eventually.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have like the start. That's why I think it's interesting that I started with the words that begin with W, because I wrote a whole list of words, and then I just kind of picked which ones I spoke to me that day that I decided to write.
Mm-hmm.
And I had no idea where it was going to go, or I would read, like the whale, for example. I just picked the whale, and I immediately had that memory of being in that boat and seeing that whale. So sometimes there's associations or things that just kind of spin like a wheel.
Mm-hmm.
And once you get started, it just keeps on going.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love your openness and sense of self-discovery. Shaunie, I would like, if you don't mind, to share with us, kind of going back to the origins of your poetry. When did you start writing poetry? And a little bit of the evolution.
So I started writing poetry, I think, when I was maybe 9 or 10. And I wrote a slew of poetry when I was a teenager. And I did not know this, but my mother had kept all of my poems. And she had since passed away. And my sister, when she went to gather up their house and close the house down, she found all of these poems that I had written at age 16. And she brought them to me. And I actually did another interesting project, which I haven't published yet. But it was like discovering this person. I'm now like in my 60s, and I'm looking back at how I was as a teenager. It was almost as though I was meeting me again after so many years. So I did a little poetry project of that. First of all, I wrote them all down. They were all in handwriting, and it just floored me that my mother would have kept this. Um, I didn't remember even writing a lot of them, but of course, as I read them, I remembered. And then I kind of closed my eyes and just imagined the title, kept the title of what I had written as a 16-year-old, and rewrote the poem as I would 55 years later or 50 years later. So I have these like two poems, and then I did an interesting experiment. I actually gave them to friends to read, and I asked them if they could point out which poems I had written at 16 and which poems I had written at 60. And some people could, and some people couldn't. It was really interesting to see that. But I think I've always written, and when I'm not writing poetry, I write stories or even books. I don't know. And it was sort of latent for many years because, going through we had children, and now I have grandchildren and a career and everything. It kind of got put to the side, but now I'm sort of semi-retired and have a little bit more time. And the first project we did, my husband and I did as a couple, my husband is retired. We collected all of his mother's stories. He was born in Iran. And his mother's had told stories to her children, and we thought that if we didn't collect them and write them down, they would disappear. So some of those had some poetic elements in them. He wrote all of these stories in Farsi and Persian, and I wrote them in English, and he did the illustrations, and we actually published a book together. Mm-hmm. So it was really a wonderful experience, and that kind of jump-started my creative juices for again writing poetry. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because there were some poetic elements. There was the one is a complete poem. It's sort of, some of them are kind of prose and poetry mixed. So that was like a kind of a key starter for me to go on again.
Right, that kind of spurs you up. Right. I have a question for you. You sound like you're involved in a lot of different creative projects in a variety of the different arts. Do you ever have moments where there is I don't want to say not inspiration, but are there ever moments of kind of feeling not stuck, but I'm like queuing in for the right words, like moments where
like
it's
a block,
like that flow is it's always there, but for whatever reason that flow is maybe not is flowing, but maybe not as well. Do you ever have moments like that? And then if so, how do you overcome that?
So that's a really interesting question, because this is not the first time I've been asked that. And many people say I have a writer's block. I just can't seem to produce anything. I can't seem to write anything. Can't seem to do anything. And I have actually the exact opposite problem. I have so many ideas in my, somebody once gave me this this visual image. You're riding a white horse, and there's a million white horses all around you, and you probably could ride all of them, but you're riding this white horse at the beginning, at that specific moment. But you really want to ride all of those horses. And so my problem has never been a block or something that never flows. My problem has always been the exact opposite of having so many ideas that I really want to just do all of them. And of course you can't. You just have to ride that one horse. it's a really crazy problem. I there's not a lot of people who complain that they have too many. It's almost like a commotion. There's always this commotion. Should I do this? Or should I do that? Or should I do? And I have to like kind of sit myself down and kind of filter out. And I know I'm going to only ride this horse today. I'm only going to ride this horse. I've actually never had a block. I've never had maybe it'll come. I don't know. But up to now, it's my problem has always been the opposite. That I've had too many ideas, and I just had to kind of restrain myself and filter out all of them so that I could concentrate and just complete and finish one thing at a time.
So there's always so many ideas that are kind of kicking around with you, Shaunie, and then your ability to stay focused once you make the decision that you're going to ride that specific white horse, whatever that is, then that kind of keeps you grounded and keeps you focused until that specific project is complete.
Right, and it's actually a kind of a self-discipline that it's like you want to do everything and you say no, you can't do everything. You have to just do this one thing, and you have to kind of self-discipline yourself. And I think that's kind of hard for a lot of people to self-discipline themselves, not because they have this particular problem that I have, that there's too many ideas, but even just to like okay, I'm going to write every day, or I'm going to write every week, or I'm going to I usually make myself a list of things to do. I might not do it exactly when I say I'm going to do it. I might have some bit of a lag time, but I do really try to write down, like, I have to edit this poem, and I have to maybe start on this thing of music, whatever I'm working on. And I actually kind of write them down every week. And I don't say like, on Sunday I have to edit a poem, and on Wednesday I have to edit another poem. I don't do that. It's not that constrained of a schedule. But I know that in 1 week, I at least try to, cross off a lot of the tasks that I set for myself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's almost as if I'm kind of my own taskmaster, but it's something I enjoy. It's not something that I feel very constrained about, or it's just I really want to get things done. I really want to do it, and I really want to have that focus and be able to finish something that I start.
It almost sounds like through your focus, Shaunie, and also through these lists, by having let's call it a loose list. It's a list that you refer to, but yet you're loose about it. It sounds like these are almost grounding techniques, because there's also this part of you that's so imaginative and so creative and so, childlike innocence and so exploratory, that maybe that helps to balance and be a grounding force. Do you view it like that as well?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. It is the adult in the room, and I do need to take myself, in a serious way, and commit myself to completing a certain amount of things every week. And I actually am able to do it. And it's not something that I don't feel like it's like a taskmaster. I don't feel something that it's constraining. It's something that I know that is helpful to me. So I do it. It's almost like it's almost like you try to eat healthy food because you know that it's healthy for you. And you can enjoy the healthy food. It can be very tasty and very yummy, but you know that that's better than if you just sat and ate a bag of chips every day, So it's kind of like that. It's like I try to have a little bit of that self-control, because I know that it's good for me. It's healthy for me. It grounds me, like you pointed out.
I have a question for you, Shaunie. When you finish a poem, what does that feel like for you? And then second, because you are so visual, and that comes across beautifully in your poetry and your voice as well, when you finish a poem, does it actually kind of stay with you? How do you feel when you finish the poem? And then once the poem's finished later that day, the next day, that week, does it kind of like linger around, so to speak, with you? What is it? What
It
does it
does,
feel?
yeah, it does linger. And sometimes I read a few of the lines and see how it kind of sounds and what images I myself get when I read them again. Sometimes I'll like just take a poem that I'd written a week ago or something, and I'll even read it from the middle or even from the last stanza and just kind of see how it feels to me and what kind of images it gives me as I read it out. So how do I feel right after I finish a poem? That's well, it's sort of like you feel like it's sort of like you feel like you've been out for playing in a little while, and then you have to come back in, and recess is over. So you're back in from the playground. Um, it sort of feels like okay, that was my playtime, and now I have to go back and cook dinner or do something for work or just get back into like something the real world.
Mm-hmm.
So when I actually finish a poem, I feel like I feel like it's done. It's like something that's really, because I don't finish it just then. I do go back and re-edit a little bit. I try not to though. I try to keep as much as possible the original outpouring, but the editing process is still there. And when I feel like it's really finished after I've done a final edit, it feels really good. It feels like you've cooked it. It's cooked, and now it's ready. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Shaunie, we have a few more minutes. What about your poetry, your poetic process, anything related to your poetic journey that you haven't shared that you'd like to share with us?
Well, I think it's a lot. I think it's very related to my musicality. I play piano, and I have composed a lot of classical music. And I think that I think the process is somewhat similar. That like there's some kind of structure in words. There's structure, and in language there's structure, and also in music there's kind of structure. But you let this kind of beauty come up and just kind of find its way through all of that structure, um, to provide something that you feel is nice for would be nice for people to read or to listen to.
Mm-hmm.
I'm never that. I don't feel like I would never want to write poetry or music or anything that would jar people or would make them feel nervous or make them feel I really do want I really want to create something that other people would find maybe relaxing or whimsical, or just something that they can kind of have a half smile for. That's important.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for sharing your poetic process and your editing. And you just have this really beautiful way of expressing yourself on so many different levels. And it's really a great joy to kind of dive into this. Shaunie, could you let us know how we can stay connected with you, please?
Okay, so I am on Facebook, just my personal Facebook. It's Shaunie Shammass, Shaunnie, and my last name is Shammass. And the W book is available on Amazon and other Barnes and Noble, Kobo. So if you do search my name, Shammass, you will get to the W book. It's on Kindle. And I just hope you enjoy anything that that I can produce, I really hope that people will be able to enjoy my work. And thank you so much for this opportunity. It's been a really, really enjoyable experience.
Thank you so much, Shawnee. We appreciate that. We'd like to thank everybody for watching today. We'll talk soon on the next Poetry and Talk. Until then, be well and be blessed. Thank you again, Shawnee, for being our guest poet. Thank you again, everybody, for watching.
Stay well.